And welcome to the Security Guy and CIA Spy Pod broadcast. I am Robert Siciliano, and this is
Peter Warmka. Robert, how are you?
Hey, buddy. I'm doing pretty good. Where are we? We're May-ish, May 15th-ish. Good. Anticipating, a warm, hot summer. Hoping to do some boating, spend some time with the kids. A little bit of downtime. Still have to work, which is fine.
How do you get? Wait a minute. How do you get downtime? This is good. Things are crazy, Robert. We're never going to be able to even retire. I mean, no, literally, you're talking about this before. It is just amazing how the fraud is rampantly increasing, and there's so many threats, especially now with AI. And we're finding. I mean, I'm finding that we're sort of losing this war, and it concerns me because a big part of this is public. First piece of this is public awareness, and I'm finding that so many people still remain so unaware of these threats, and I'm getting really concerned.
Man, I agree with you 1,000%. It's without a doubt, AI has amped up fraud in such a way where it's likely that everybody is going to fall victim to something. You know, whether it's national media and there being some type of a video or audio or something that one of the major news organizations is scammed by. Therefore, they present it to us and we're scammed by it based on something from a nation state, a Putin or a Xi or something that deep fake puts out there that convinces us that a nuke is coming. Anything, like it could be anything. I get it, but listen, here's what I tell people: don't worry about any of this stuff, but we got to do something about it. Inaction is your greatest enemy. Sitting by and doing nothing is the problem. And too many people just don't want to believe that these things can happen to them, or that we even have a problem for that matter. They would just prefer to function in denial. And that's the biggest issue that most of us face, is that we trust too much. And we don't
Robert,
believe it can happen to us.
Both you and I, are really serving the role with a lot of this as educators and trying to create this awareness and helping to guide, we helping to guide individuals. And the first part is understanding. I just came back. I was in Hershey, Pennsylvania yesterday. What a great place, Hershey, especially if you love chocolate. In any case, I was at the Hershey Country Club, which was the venue for a conference of over 100 certified fraud examiners from central Pennsylvania. I'm also a certified fraud examiner. It's a great group of fraud fighters. And my presentation, it was a 4-hour long presentation in regard to AI and basically the AI threats, and as well as what tools there are out there that can help us combat some of these threats. And what really amazed me, as I mentioned, this is a very professional group. And I was just amazed by how little most members of the group knew about AI in general, as well as AI threats. So, I mean, if this group at this level, professionals are not really that attuned to it, means that, the general public is even further behind. So we got our work cut out for us.
Yeah, it's scary. But getting back to the original question, downtime, I still need to turn it off.
I know.
I need to turn it off because this stuff is nuts. And so getting out in that boat, wind in the face, salt water in the air, chugging on my favorite adult beverage, whatever that might be, and heading into Boston Harbor or any of the Boston Harbor Islands or any of the great beaches we have in the New England area. It's like, okay, all right. I gotta decompress.
I guess you see how I decompress? I'm having lots of Java, a lot of coffee. It's getting me overly excited about these topics, and I just can't relax.
Dude, but check this out. And there's plenty of reasons not to relax. So check this out. This is via The Guardian. And I'm seeing this more and more and more and it's becoming more frequent. CEO of the world's biggest ad firm targeted by deep fake scams. So fraudsters impersonated WPP's CEO using a fake WhatsApp account a voice clone, and YouTube footage used in a virtual meet. So it goes on to say that the head of the world's biggest advertising group was the target of an elaborate deepfake scam that involved artificial intelligence voice clone. The CEO, his name is Mark Reed, detailed the attempted fraud in a recent email to leadership, warning others at the company to look out for calls claiming to be from the top executives. So fraudsters created a WhatsApp account with a publicly available image of Reed and used it to set up a Microsoft Teams meeting that appeared to be with him and another senior executive. According to the email obtained by The Guardian, during the meeting, the imposters deployed a voice clone of the executive as well as YouTube footage of them. The scammers impersonated Reed off camera using the meeting's chat window. The scam, which was unsuccessful, targeted an agency leader, so somebody in the company that had the ability to pull some strings, asking them to set up new business in an attempt to solicit money and personal details. Fortunately, the attackers weren't successful, Reed wrote in an email. We all need to be vigilant to the techniques that go beyond emails to take advantage of virtual meetings, AI, and deepfakes. So without getting into the weeds here, what it seems like is that there were too many red flags in this particular scam, meaning like it was kind of like a haphazard attempt at utilizing photo and video and YouTube and text and chat, and it just wasn't successful because they were just, it wasn't well thought out, well planned out. The scam itself wasn't that effective because they just didn't do a good job. But look at this one, right? Deep fake scam. Scammers walked off with $25 million in its first of its kind AI heist. This is back in February, so not too long ago. The incident marks the first of its kind in Hong Kong, involving a large sum of money and use deepfake technology to simulate a multi-person video conference where the participants, except the victim, were fabricated images of real individuals. The scammers were able to convincingly replicate the appearance and voices of targeted individuals using publicly available video and audio footage. The Hong Kong police are currently investigating the case with no arrest reported yet. I believe since then, a bunch of people were arrested. So the $25 million, and they were successful at it. He was convinced that these were colleagues, that these were real people. And in a sense, they were real, other than the fact that it was AI generated real people. Mm-hmm. And he fell for it, which, look at, we have grown to trust audio. We've grown to trust video. We've grown to trust the printed word, text, video, audio. And why wouldn't you? Because after a lifetime of trusting, my mother would say, trust nothing of what you hear and half of what you see. Mm-hmm. And at this point, you can't even trust what you see or anything you hear or anything printed for that matter.
Well, this is a really interesting development because, we've heard about pictures being created, deepfake pictures. We've heard about, cloning of the voice. And now we get a combination of the two, which is even more convincing, right? You're hearing the CFO who was there. I mean, who was in this video in a Zoom? I think it was Zoom, right? Was it a Zoom platform?
Something to that effect. Yeah. They're using Microsoft Teams. They're using Google Meet. They're using Zoom. They're using anything and everything that they have access to that's free to small fee to free.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. At the end of the day, we can't prevent these things from happening. In the case of the first one with the CEO, I mean, kudos to them in regard to at least there were people that had that certain level of awareness that they called it the red flags. Probably in other companies, if the same thing would have happened, it could have been very detrimental, but at least they were able to detect something was wrong and investigate it. And then even further, being able to report or bring it to the light of the public saying, this is what happened to us, which is so important because I think there's hundreds of these happening every day in companies, but no one's talking about it. And I think more, and so people don't realize that these things are happening. So providing those testimonials is very important. And I think even more than looking at, we can't prevent these attempts, but we can, we can take action about whether or not we're going to, we are going to respond to those attempts in such a way that we comply with them versus verifying, building in a verification system, whatever it may be, and it's going to be different types of verification systems. That's where I think where the focus really has to be in combating becoming victimized.
So right here, SC Magazine, just in the past month, talks about LastPass for its attempt to deceive employee with deepfake audio. So a LastPass employee was targeted by a deepfake audio call earlier impersonating the CEO, but because it was done via WhatsApp, which isn't a normal channel that LastPass employees use and not part of the normal business communication, the employee didn't fall for the scam. So again, poor planning on the part of the scammers. An employee received a series of calls, texts, and at least one voicemail featuring an audio deepfake from a threat actor impersonating the CEO. Due to the employee's suspicion regarding the presence of many of the hallmarks of the social engineering attempt, such as forced urgency, our employee rightly ignored the messages and reported the incident to our internal security team so that we could take steps to both mitigate the threat and raise awareness of the tactic both internally and externally. So great for the LastPass employee for thwarting the attack, for recognizing that it's fraud. And at the same time, for LastPass, coming out and saying, hey, this is what's going on. So between the Hong Kong company, LastPass, this, the largest ad firm in the world, those are just the ones that we're hearing about.
Exactly. You know what? The fact that the first thing that comes to my mind regarding their use of WhatsApp is because it is very, very popular in certain countries overseas, but less popular in the United States as a communication tool. So it probably was, like we would suspect with a lot of these, coming from overseas.
Yeah, absolutely. Now check this out from our favorite publication, The Sun. Not exactly credible, but still they put together decent stories. Don't speak. Why your voice is no longer safe on social media as AI clones mimic speech to deceive family and break into bank accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so AI voice clones that can trick family and break into bank accounts are already a threat, experts warn. Cyber thieves are increasingly scouring for clips of people's voices on social media to mimic them in potentially devastating scams. Easy AI tools make it super simple for fraudsters to rip off a person's voice with little technical knowledge. And one of the easiest, safest places for them to look for audio of you speaking is on social media, such as Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever you're on. AI-generated voices are already a threat to personal identity in at least two contexts. That includes, first, the voice can be used to breach speaker verification software in order to first gain access to systems such as bank accounts, so spoofing biometrics. Further, AI-generated voice can be used to deceive other human listeners. The technology already exists to produce speech, which is indistinguishable to most listeners in best-case scenarios, but there is still a lot of variation in the quality of AI-generated speech. I'm going to dispute that. Just very recently, I was listening to an AI-generated voice that CNN put out there via ChatGPT, which isn't ready for prime time yet, or at least it's not being deployed to the masses. And they put together a 15-second clip of a guy who had a pretty, I guess, distinguished voice. And then they put together another 15 seconds of an AI-generated voice. And man, I don't care what you say. I couldn't tell the difference. In a million years, I'd never be able to tell the difference. Like, it was perfect. It was perfect.
Yeah, they are perfect. And I think even if there were slight, variances when a grandparent or a parent gets this telephone call, and it's referred to them by like their daughter Emily or their son, whatever, and they hear help and they hear this distress, they're not thinking, well, the quality of the voice is not quite. I mean, could be any kind of distortion in the line, so people are not even thinking about that. They're in a totally different state of mind that they want to help. It's fear. The fear, if they don't do something, if they don't send this money, something bad's going to happen, and
that's urgency.
Scarcity of time. They got to do something right away, and they got to send it to help their loved one. What this article though says about getting the sampling of the voice from social media, I think that's minimal, because you can find people that have their video, like young kids having their videos and stuff online. But I think the way I would do this if I was a bad person would be I would be getting on social media and looking at Facebook and looking at the elderly, looking at people that I can identify the grandparents. I can identify that they have money. Then I can probably see from their social media, identify their children and their grandchildren. And then, then I can look at the grandchildren, let's say, and learn about their pattern of life and what they're doing, where they go and this and that. So that when I develop a scheme to call the grandparent, you already know the name of the child, you know their pattern of life, and you can include things about them that you've been able to gather from social media that the parents or grandparents say, oh, that's definitely my kid. And then getting the voice is very easy. If you have the telephone number of the child, you call that number and you can get a voice sampling of whatever it is. I've heard 3 to 5 seconds. I've heard 10 seconds, but that's not much time, right? That's all you need. So you can get them on a phone and with a very brief conversation, or at least getting to say, hello, who's this? Can't hear you, or it goes to voicemail, and a lot of them will set up their voicemail with their own voices these days. So that's enough of a voice sampling. So I think the article more or less is talking about these issues correctly, but I think the flow, optimal flow of how they would target people would be a little bit different.
And, it's just a matter of time, Peter, until somebody out there gets creative and they use our pod broadcast and our video and our audio, our likeness, and they use it like to spoof us. It's just, it's coming.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's not going to be pretty.
No, that's when you're going to be on your boat when that happens.
Hey, security guy, how do you like this one? I've had criminal hackers email me my social security number. Be like, hey, security guy, haha, gotcha. And I don't really care about that they have my social, because I know that. Like, I know that my social's out there. Like, everybody's in. Like, to me, it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. I mean, I have a credit freeze. I have identity theft protection. I have credit monitoring. I have multiple layers of services of protection to basically make that data useless to the thief. Even if they have my social, there's not a whole lot they can do with it, because it's not an attractive numerical identifier due to the fact that all of the restrictions that go along with it due to, credit freezes and everything else. But with all the audio and all the video we put out there, I mean, they could put anything out there. Anything. Yeah. Right.
What percentage of people do you believe have, because you've been involved in this for some time and talking to people about credit freeze, what percentage of the U.S. population do you think actually have their credit frozen?
See, I don't know, and the credit bureaus aren't going to tell you. I would surmise it's definitely less than 10%. And the reason,
and that's sad, man. This is like the number. If you could go and give one piece of advice to help people protect themselves from fraudsters when it comes to their protecting their identity, right? That's like I think that's like the number one biggest thing that they can do. But yet, and we talked about it so much, and yet people just don't get around to it.
It's less than 10%, and I would say that it's probably even less than 5%. And I base that on just my audience interactions. So I get in front of an audience of 100 people, and I'll ask, how many of you have a credit freeze? And if I get 5 to 7 people raising their hand, then that's it. I mean, that's usually what it is. I've never, ever had more than 6 or 8% of the audience raise their hand ever in a presentation that I've done, ever. And I ask that question every single time I discuss credit freezes. How many of you actually have a credit freeze? And, the few hands go up, and that's it. That's how I base my research. That's it.
Well, maybe unfortunately, we are not like the big influencers, right? If you got somebody like Taylor Swift coming out saying, well, I highly recommend that you do a credit freeze, all of a sudden everybody would be doing it.
Well, and there may be some truth to that, but even still, when it comes to security, man, people they just don't want to believe it. They don't want to think that they can be targeted. We just inherently don't want to think it can happen to us, and therefore we do nothing about it. And by doing nothing about it, we're almost ensuring it's not going to happen to us. Like, it's just kind of like this ridiculousness that we possessed it. If we begin to think about it, now we're acting paranoid. It's like, no, you're not acting paranoid. You're taking a responsibility. You're putting systems in place. You're reducing risk. And it's like, that's what you're supposed to do. You don't put a seatbelt on because you're paranoid. You put a seatbelt on because it's a smart thing to do. But it takes like a whole lifetime of training. Look at the seatbelt has been around my whole life. It has literally been around since the 50s, but it's been required to be installed in American-made or American-sold vehicles since 1968. That's when I was born. That's 55 years, or going on 56 years. And I only started wearing the seatbelt a decade ago, and it's been around my entire life. But that's most people, though. It takes laws to be established. It takes awareness campaigns. It takes a beating on the head. It takes ding, 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 ding. The car won't stop dinging at you until you put the seatbelt on in order for people to manage their risk in the car.
I have kind of a funny anecdote that comes to my mind now that you mentioned seatbelts, because here in America, cars as soon as they were required that people use seatbelts, cars came with that was a standard feature, right? In some other countries, you had to almost like pay extra to get seatbelts installed. And I remember my wife is from the country of El Salvador, and in El Salvador, way back when they started saying you need to have seatbelts, instead of people going out and buying and having seatbelts installed, because there was a bit of a cost, right? They had T-shirts with the imprint of a seatbelt across the chest of the T-shirt, which they would wear. People were selling those as a cheaper solution than buying seatbelts. Can you believe it?
Yes,
because anymore, but I'm saying it's crazy.
That is so ridiculous, and it makes perfect sense because we are ridiculous creatures. Okay, so last but not least, selfie spoofing becomes popular identity document fraud technique. Document image of image was the most prevalent identity ID document fraud technique in 2023, occurring in 63% of all IDs that were rejected, according to SoCure. So a concerning trend. Selfie spoofing can be carried out quickly and easily thanks to the availability of public social media profiles. Selfie spoofing and impersonation dominate document-related identity fraud, says HelpNet Security. Document image of image occurs when the user takes a photograph or uses a screenshot image of an ID. Rather than providing a live capture of the document headshot tampering takes place when a user purposely manipulates facial imagery. And selfie spoofing entails taking a picture of an image on a computer screen, printed on a piece of paper, or even an actual headshot on a different document, often carried out to steal identities or fraudulently access systems. And so any financial service professional, bank, mortgage company, lender that uses, investment company that uses photographed, texted, emailed driver's licenses as a form of authentication are at significant risk right now. So that's always been, I think, a significant risk. Like using identity documents that are sent electronically as a form of authentication, which I would think that at this point in my life, it's probably at least 2 or 3 times a year. Because I have my driver's license front and back on my actual mobile phone, meaning ready to go, like as in my camera roll, because there's been so many instances where I've needed it, to send off to whoever to establish an account. And that technology is being decimated with AI.
But there are some tools, and I actually demonstrated one yesterday, an AI tool that's used for analyzing IDs, right? Okay. And it analyzes it from a lot of different points, but of course, this kind of thing does cost a little bit of money. I'm not sure how much, but it costs a little bit of money, and it's going to take maybe a little bit of time to actually, not a lot of time, but to be able to run it through the system. And until companies though start using these type of tools, they are going to end up, paying a price, paying a bigger price.
Yeah. All right, Peter. So tell where can everybody find you? Where can they see you? What are you up to? Where can they get your book? Talk to me.
Well, at the moment, I'm finally back in Orlando, but I'm going to be traveling again soon, which is good. I mean, on the road quite a bit, but I would people think about it. If you're looking for, if you wish your company had a presentation on the kind of things that Robert and I speak about, think about reaching out to us, either individually or even, we could do something together as a presentation. It could be even virtual, whether it's in person or a virtual event for your companies. I mean, we're able to reach a lot more people if we do things virtually, so think about it, or anybody else you think that might be interested in this podcast, please have them tune in.
And what's your website address?
Counterintelligence-institute.com.
Yep. And your books?
Yep. That's Messing With Me, written for our seniors in our lives. It's available on Amazon, as well as the first book, Confessions of a CIA Spy, The Art of Hacking. So these are available on paperback, on Kindle version, as well as audio.
All right. And y'all can find me at protectnowllc.com. Again, that's protectnowllc.com. Obviously, security awareness training, I call it security appreciation training. But you can always find me on the interwebs. Just Google Robert Siciliano, Siciliano. And Peter, last words?
Stay safe out there and take care of each other.
Yeah. And as my dad says, be good, behave, and be careful. Talk to you guys soon.